The world had changed overnight. It started with a strange broadcast, a garbled emergency message that flickered across every screen in the country, warning of a viral outbreak in the heart of Chicago. Most people dismissed it as a hoax, but by the time the sun rose, the city was in chaos. The undead had come, not as the slow, shambling corpses of old horror movies, but as a relentless, organized force, moving with a terrifying purpose. In the midst of this nightmare, a small group of survivors found themselves thrown together by fate. There was Jackson Miller, a former firefighter with a haunted past, who had lost his family in the first wave. He moved with a quiet determination, his eyes always scanning for danger. Beside him was Emily Carter, a resourceful nurse who had seen more death in the last 24 hours than in her entire career. She carried a battered first aid kit and a baseball bat, her knuckles white with tension. The group also included Marcus Reed, a quick-witted mechanic with a knack for improvisation, and Olivia Brooks, a high school science teacher whose calm logic kept panic at bay. Rounding out the group was Ben Turner, a retired Marine who had taken charge when the world fell apart, his military training proving invaluable as they navigated the ruined streets. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire, the group huddled in the back room of an abandoned hardware store. The air was thick with fear and the stench of decay. Outside, the moans of the undead echoed through the empty streets, a constant reminder of the danger lurking just beyond the thin walls. Jackson peered through a crack in the boarded-up window, his heart pounding as he counted the shadowy figures shuffling past. "We can't stay here," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "They're getting closer." Ben nodded, his jaw set. "We move at first light. Head for the river. If we can make it to the docks, maybe we can find a boat and get out of the city." Emily glanced at the others, her eyes wide with fear. "What if they're waiting for us? What if there's no way out?" Marcus tried to lighten the mood with a crooked grin. "Hey, at least we won't have to worry about rush hour traffic." Olivia managed a weak smile, but the tension in the room was palpable. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the silence. The group froze as the back door rattled violently, the hinges groaning under the assault. Jackson raised his axe, Ben leveled his shotgun, and Emily gripped her bat tighter. The door burst open, and a figure stumbled inside, covered in blood. For a split second, no one moved. Then the figure gasped, "Help me, please." It was a young woman, barely out of her teens, her clothes torn and her face streaked with tears. Olivia rushed to her side, checking for bites. "I'm not infected," the girl sobbed. "My name's Madison. They're everywhere. They got my brother. Please, don't leave me out there." The group exchanged wary glances, but Emily nodded. "We can't just leave her." Ben relented, motioning for Madison to sit. "Stay quiet. We move at dawn." As the group settled in for a restless night, the sounds outside grew louder. The undead were gathering, drawn by the scent of the living. Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the zombies were more than mindless monsters. He remembered the way they had moved in unison, blocking escape routes and herding survivors like cattle. It was as if someone, or something, was controlling them. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the building, every distant scream, set nerves on edge. Marcus tinkered with a makeshift radio, trying to pick up any signal, but all he got was static. Olivia scribbled notes in a battered notebook, documenting everything she observed about the undead. "They're not like anything I've ever read about," she whispered to Emily. "They communicate somehow. It's like they're hunting us." Emily shivered, glancing at the boarded windows. "We just have to make it through the night." As the hours dragged on, the group took turns keeping watch. Ben paced the room, his eyes never leaving the door. Jackson sat beside Madison, offering her a bottle of water. "You said they got your brother. What happened?" Madison's hands trembled as she spoke. "We were trying to get to the hospital. He got bit. I tried to help him, but he changed so fast. They came out of nowhere, like they knew where we were going. Jackson frowned, his suspicions growing. Did you see anyone else? Anyone giving orders? Madison shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, just, more of them. So many more. As dawn approached, the group prepared to move. Marcus rigged a noise trap at the back door, hoping to buy them a few precious seconds if the undead broke through. Olivia packed her notes, determined to find answers. Ben checked his ammunition, his face grim. Stick together. No heroics. We get to the river, find a boat, and get the hell out of here. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracks in the boards, casting long shadows across the room. The group steeled themselves, knowing that the real fight was just beginning. As they slipped out the back door, hearts pounding, they had no idea what horrors awaited them in the city beyond, or what secrets the undead invasion still held. The city was eerily silent as Jackson led the group through the narrow alleyways, every step echoing off the crumbling brick walls. The early morning light revealed the devastation, abandoned cars, shattered windows, and the occasional bloodstain marking a desperate struggle. The group moved quickly, keeping low and sticking to the shadows. Ben took point, his eyes scanning for threats, while Marcus brought up the rear, clutching a crowbar and glancing nervously over his shoulder. Madison stayed close to Emily, her face pale but determined. Olivia, ever the observer, noted the strange patterns in the destruction. It was as if the undead had swept through in waves, leaving pockets of untouched buildings surrounded by utter chaos. They reached the edge of a deserted park, the river glinting in the distance. The docks were visible beyond a tangle of overgrown bushes and toppled fences. But between them and safety, a small horde of zombies milled about, their heads jerking up at the slightest sound. Jackson signaled for the group to stop. "We need a distraction," he whispered. Marcus nodded, pulling a handful of firecrackers from his backpack. "Picked these up at the hardware store. Might as well put them to good use." He crept to the edge of the park, lit the fuse, and tossed the firecrackers into a distant playground. The sharp pops and crackles drew the undead away, their attention shifting as they shuffled toward the noise. The group seized the opportunity, darting from cover to cover. Emily helped Madison over a fallen tree, while Ben and Jackson kept their weapons ready. They were halfway across the park when a guttural growl froze them in their tracks. From behind a rusted swing set, a massive zombie lunged, its movements faster and more coordinated than the others. Ben fired a shot, the blast echoing through the empty park, but the creature barely flinched. It barreled into Jackson, knocking him to the ground. The others sprang into action, Emily swung her bat, Marcus jabbed with his crowbar, and Olivia hurled a rock at the creature's head. Finally, Ben managed to get a clean shot, dropping the zombie with a spray of dark, foul-smelling blood. Panting, the group dragged Jackson to his feet. "You okay?" Emily asked, checking him for wounds. Jackson nodded, shaken but unhurt. "That one was different," he muttered. "Stronger. Smarter." Olivia knelt beside the corpse, examining its head. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a strange metal implant embedded in the zombie's skull. "This isn't natural. Someone's experimenting on them." The revelation sent a chill through the group. If the undead were being modified, their fight for survival had just become even more dangerous. They pressed on, reaching the docks as the sun climbed higher. The river was wide and fast-moving, the water reflecting the ruined skyline. Several boats bobbed at the pier, but most were either damaged or missing their keys. Marcus found a small fishing boat that looked intact. "If we can hotwire it, we're out of here," he said, rolling up his sleeves. As he worked, the others kept watch, nerves frayed by the close call in the park. Madison clung to Emily, her eyes darting to every shadow. "Do you think my brother could have had one of those things in his head?" she whispered. Emily squeezed her hand. "I don't know, but we'll find out. We have to. Suddenly, a voice crackled over a nearby loudspeaker, distorted but unmistakably human. Attention survivors. This is Dr. Victor Harlan. If you can hear this, make your way to the old University Science Building. We have shelter, supplies, and answers. The message repeated, echoing across the river. The group exchanged glances, hope flickering in their eyes. That's not far from here, Olivia said. If anyone knows what's going on, it's him. He used to run the CDC lab downtown. Ben hesitated, weighing their options. We get the boat ready, but we check out the university first. If it's a trap, we bail. If not, maybe we finally get some answers. Marcus got the engine sputtering to life, and the group quickly loaded supplies. As they pushed off from the dock, the city receded behind them, the moans of the undead fading into the distance. But the sense of danger never left. Jackson kept his eyes on the shore, watching for any sign of pursuit. Olivia clutched her notebook, her mind racing with questions. Who was controlling the zombies? What was the purpose of the implants? And most importantly, could humanity really fight back, or was this just the beginning of the end? As the boat drifted toward the university, the group steeled themselves for whatever lay ahead. The undead were evolving, and so too would their fight for survival. The real war was just beginning. The boat's engine sputtered as Marcus guided it along the riverbank, the city's ruined skyline looming behind them. The group sat in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The message from Dr. Victor Harlan replayed in their minds, a fragile thread of hope in a world gone mad. As they neared the university's old science building, the campus came into view, its once proud clock tower now blackened by fire, windows shattered, and the grounds eerily deserted. Ben scanned the shoreline with binoculars, searching for signs of life or danger. "Looks clear," he said, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Jackson gripped his axe, ready for anything. "Let's move. Quiet and fast." They docked the boat behind a cluster of reeds and crept up the embankment, sticking close to the overgrown hedges. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and decay. Emily kept Madison close, whispering reassurances as they hurried across the cracked pavement. Olivia led the way, her memory of the campus layout guiding them through the maze of abandoned buildings. As they approached the science building, they spotted a barricade of overturned desks and metal fencing blocking the main entrance. A figure appeared on the roof, waving a white cloth. "Over here," the voice called, echoing across the empty quad. The group hesitated, weapons at the ready, but the figure quickly descended a fire escape and unlocked a side door. "Hurry, before they see you," he urged. Inside, the building was dimly lit by emergency lights. The man introduced himself as Dr. Victor Harlan, his lab coat stained and his face drawn with exhaustion. "You're safe for now," he said, leading them down a hallway lined with makeshift beds and supply crates. A handful of other survivors watched warily from the shadows. "We've been monitoring the outbreak since day one. The virus is mutating, and someone is accelerating the process." Olivia wasted no time. "We found a zombie with a metal implant in its skull." "What does it mean?" Dr. Harlan's expression darkened. "That's what we're trying to figure out. The implants are transmitting signals, controlling the infected, making them more aggressive and coordinated. We believe a rogue military faction is behind it, using the undead as weapons." The revelation sent a ripple of fear through the group. Ben clenched his fists. "So we're not just fighting zombies. We're fighting whoever's pulling the strings." Dr. Harlan nodded grimly. "We've intercepted encrypted radio transmissions. They're planning something big, an attack on the survivor camps outside the city. If we don't stop them, there won't be anyone left to save." Marcus looked around at the battered survivors, his voice shaky but determined. "What can we do?" Dr. Harlan gestured to a map spread across a table. "We need to infiltrate their command center. It's located in the old federal building downtown. If we can destroy the transmitter, we can disrupt their control over the undead. The plan was risky, but the group knew they had no choice. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Harlan handed Olivia a small device. This will help you track the signal. But be careful, the infected aren't the only threat out there. Emily checked her supplies, her hands trembling. We're really doing this, aren't we? Jackson put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We have to. For everyone who's still out there. As night fell, the group slipped out of the university, their hearts pounding with fear and determination. The city was a labyrinth of shadows and danger, but they moved with purpose, guided by the faint beeping of Olivia's tracker. Every alley held the threat of ambush, every distant scream a reminder of what was at stake. Madison clung to hope, her brother's memory driving her forward. Ben led the way, his military instincts sharp as ever. Marcus and Jackson watched their backs, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. The undead were changing, and so was the fight. But for the first time since the outbreak began, the group felt a glimmer of hope. They had a mission, a chance to strike back. And as they disappeared into the night, the city's fate hung in the balance, waiting for the apocalypse warriors to make their move. The city at night was a different kind of nightmare. Shadows stretched across the streets, broken only by the flicker of distant fires and the occasional flash of lightning from a brewing summer storm. The group moved in silence, every sense on high alert. Olivia clutched the tracking device, its faint beeping growing stronger as they neared the federal building. Ben led them through a maze of alleyways, his military training guiding their every step. Jackson and Marcus kept watch at the rear, weapons ready, while Emily and Madison stayed close in the middle, their eyes darting nervously at every sound. As they approached the federal building, they saw the first signs of the rogue military faction. Armed men in mismatched uniforms patrolled the perimeter, their faces hidden behind gas masks. Floodlights illuminated the entrance, casting harsh shadows across the barricades. The group ducked behind a burned-out SUV, watching as a truck loaded with supplies rumbled through the gates. "We can't go in the front," Marcus whispered. "Too many guards." Olivia studied the map Dr. Harlan had given them. "There's a service tunnel that runs under the building. If we can find the entrance, we might be able to get inside without being seen." They circled the block, keeping to the darkness, until they found a rusted metal grate half hidden by debris. Jackson pried it open with his axe, and one by one, they slipped into the tunnel, the air thick with the smell of mold and rot. The tunnel was pitch black, their only light coming from Marcus's flashlight. Every step echoed off the damp concrete, and the group moved quickly, desperate to avoid drawing attention. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the darkness ahead. Ben raised his shotgun, signaling for silence. Two zombies lurched into the beam of light, their eyes glowing with a strange, unnatural intelligence. They moved faster than any the group had seen before, their movements almost coordinated. Jackson swung his axe, taking one down, while Ben fired at the other. The noise reverberated through the tunnel, and for a moment, the group held their breath, waiting for more. But the silence returned, broken only by the distant hum of machinery. "We have to keep moving," Emily urged, her voice trembling. "We're getting close." Olivia checked the tracker. "The signal's coming from the basement. We're almost there." They reached a heavy steel door, its lock rusted but still intact. Marcus worked quickly, his hands steady despite the tension. With a soft click, the door swung open, revealing a dimly lit corridor lined with cables and computer monitors. The group slipped inside, hearts pounding. At the far end of the corridor, they found the source of the signal, a makeshift control room filled with radio equipment and surveillance screens. A lone technician sat at the console, his back to the door. Ben crept forward, gun drawn. "Don't move," he ordered. The technician spun around, hands raised in surrender. "Please, don't shoot. I'm just following orders." Olivia stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Who's in charge here? Who's controlling the zombies?" The technician's eyes darted nervously. "It's Colonel Briggs. He thinks he can use the infected to rebuild order, his order. He's upstairs, in the command center. If you destroy the transmitter, you'll break his control, but he won't let you do it without a fight." Jackson glanced at the others. "We need to move fast. Marcus, can you rig the transmitter to blow?" Marcus nodded, already scanning the equipment. "Give me 5 minutes." As Marcus worked, the rest of the group kept watch. Emily tended to Madison, who was shaking with fear but determined to see it through. Ben and Jackson guarded the door, listening for any sign of approaching soldiers. Olivia searched the room for anything useful, her mind racing with possibilities. Suddenly, the building shook with the sound of distant explosions. The technician paled. "They know you're here. Briggs is sending his men." Marcus finished setting the charges, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's ready. We have to get out, now." The group raced back through the corridor, alarms blaring and red lights flashing. As they reached the tunnel entrance, armed soldiers appeared, blocking their escape. Ben fired a warning shot, and the group dove for cover as bullets ricocheted off the walls. Jackson and Marcus fought back with everything they had, while Olivia and Emily shielded Madison behind a pile of crates. The firefight was intense, the air thick with smoke and fear. But the group's determination never wavered. With a final burst of gunfire, they broke through the line of soldiers and sprinted for the tunnel. Behind them, the control room erupted in flames, the transmitter destroyed. As they emerged into the night, gasping for breath, the city seemed to hold its breath with them. The undead invasion force had lost its leader, but the war was far from over. The group knew they had only bought themselves a little time, and that the real fight for humanity's survival was just beginning. The city was in chaos as the group emerged from the tunnel, the night sky pulsing with the glow of distant fires and the wail of sirens. The destruction of the transmitter had sent shockwaves through the ranks of the undead. Without the artificial signals guiding them, the zombies had become unpredictable, some wandering aimlessly, others turning on the rogue soldiers who had once controlled them. The group paused in a shadowed alley, catching their breath and taking stock. Marcus's hands shook as he reloaded his pistol, the adrenaline of the firefight still coursing through him. Emily checked Madison for injuries, her relief palpable when she found none. Ben scanned the streets, his jaw clenched. "We need to get off the streets. Briggs won't give up that easily. He'll regroup, and he'll be looking for us." Olivia nodded, her mind racing. "We need to warn Dr. Harlan and the others at the university. Without the transmitter, the zombies are wild, but if Briggs has another way to control them, he'll try again." Jackson led the way, guiding the group through the maze of debris-strewn streets. The city felt even more dangerous now, with the undead no longer moving in predictable patterns. They stumbled across scenes of chaos, rogue soldiers being overwhelmed by their own creations, terrified survivors fleeing in every direction, and the ever-present threat of zombies lurking in the shadows. The group moved quickly, avoiding the main roads and sticking to the back alleys. As they neared the university, a sudden commotion erupted ahead. A group of survivors was trapped on the steps of a library, surrounded by a pack of frenzied zombies. Without hesitation, Ben and Jackson charged in, drawing the zombies' attention while Marcus and Olivia helped the survivors escape. Emily and Madison provided cover, swinging their weapons with desperate determination. The fight was brutal, but the group's teamwork and resolve saw them through. When the last zombie fell, the rescued survivors, 3 men and a woman, thanked them profusely. "We heard the explosions," one of the men said breathlessly. "What happened?" Olivia explained quickly, her words urgent. "The transmitter's gone, but the danger isn't over. We need to get everyone to the science building. It's the safest place left." The expanded group hurried across the campus, slipping through side doors and barricading them behind. Inside, Dr. Harlan greeted them with a mixture of relief and concern. "You did it," he said, his voice trembling. "But the city's falling apart. The military's in disarray, and the infected are everywhere." Ben wasted no time. "Briggs is still out there. He'll try to regroup, maybe even build another transmitter. We need to be ready." Dr. Harlan nodded, leading them to a makeshift command center. "We've been monitoring radio chatter. Briggs is calling for reinforcements. He's holed up at the old armory on the edge of town. If he gets his hands on more equipment, he could start this nightmare all over again." The group exchanged grim looks. Marcus spoke up, his voice steady. "Then we finish this. We take the fight to him." Olivia agreed, her eyes fierce. "We can't let him rebuild. If we do, there won't be another chance." As the survivors fortified the science building, the group prepared for their next move. Emily tended to the wounded, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. Madison helped distribute supplies, her fear replaced by a growing sense of purpose. Ben and Jackson checked their weapons, their resolve hardening with every passing minute. Olivia pored over maps and radio logs, searching for any advantage. Marcus worked with Dr. Harlan to rig makeshift explosives, determined to ensure Briggs would never control the undead again. Night deepened, and the storm finally broke, rain lashing the windows and thunder rumbling overhead. The group gathered for a final briefing, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single lantern. "This is it," Ben said quietly. "We end this tonight. For everyone we've lost, and everyone still fighting." The group nodded, united by a shared sense of purpose. As they slipped out into the storm, the city seemed to come alive with danger and possibility. The final battle was coming, and the apocalypse warriors were ready to fight for humanity's future, no matter the cost. The rain fell in relentless sheets as the group made their way toward the old armory, the city's streets slick and treacherous beneath their boots. Lightning flashed, illuminating the shattered skyline and casting monstrous shadows that danced along the ruined buildings. Every step was a test of nerve, the howls of the undead and the distant crackle of gunfire a constant reminder that danger was never far away. Ben led the way, his military instincts guiding them through the maze of debris and abandoned vehicles. Jackson and Marcus flanked the group, weapons at the ready, while Olivia and Emily kept close to Madison and the other survivors they'd rescued. The storm masked their movements, but it also made it harder to see what lay ahead. As they neared the armory, the group paused beneath the shelter of a collapsed billboard. Olivia checked the map, her hands trembling with cold and adrenaline. "The main entrance will be heavily guarded," she whispered. "But there's a maintenance tunnel that runs under the east wall. If we can get inside, we might be able to catch Briggs by surprise." Marcus nodded, already scanning the area for any sign of patrols. "We'll have to move fast. If they spot us, we'll have the whole place on our backs." Ben checked his watch, then looked at the others. "We go in quiet. No unnecessary risks. We get to Briggs, destroy whatever equipment he's got left, and get out." The group slipped through the darkness, skirting the edge of the armory's perimeter. The maintenance tunnel was half flooded, the water icy and foul-smelling, but it offered the cover they needed. Jackson led the way, his axe gripped tightly, every sense straining for danger. The tunnel opened into a storage room filled with crates of ammunition and old uniforms. The group moved quickly, avoiding the main corridors and sticking to the shadows. Olivia's tracker beeped softly, guiding them toward the source of the rogue signals. Suddenly, voices echoed down the hallway, Briggs's men, arguing over the radio. The group froze, pressed against the wall as two soldiers passed by, oblivious to the intruders in their midst. Ben signaled for silence, and they waited until the footsteps faded before moving on. They reached the command center, a fortified room at the heart of the armory. Through a crack in the door, they saw Colonel Briggs himself, barking orders at his remaining men. Banks of monitors displayed live feeds from across the city, and in the center of the room stood a new transmitter, smaller but no less dangerous than the one they destroyed. Marcus pulled out the explosives he and Dr. Harlan had prepared. "We take out the transmitter, and this all ends," he whispered. Ben nodded, his eyes never leaving Briggs. "We'll need a distraction." Jackson volunteered, his voice steady. "I'll draw their fire. You get to the transmitter." The plan was risky, but there was no time to hesitate. Jackson burst through the door, swinging his axe and shouting, "Over here." The room erupted in chaos as Briggs's men turned their weapons on him. Ben, Marcus, and Olivia slipped in behind the confusion, moving swiftly toward the transmitter. Emily and Madison stayed in the hallway, ready to provide cover if needed. The firefight was brutal, bullets ricocheted off the walls, and the air filled with smoke and shouts. Jackson fought like a man possessed, buying precious seconds for his friends. Marcus reached the transmitter and began setting the charges, his hands moving with practiced speed. Briggs spotted them and lunged, firing wildly. Ben tackled him, the two men crashing to the floor in a desperate struggle. Olivia helped Marcus finish arming the explosives, her heart pounding in her chest. With the charges set, Marcus shouted, "Now!" The group scrambled for the exit, dragging a wounded but still fighting Briggs with them. Emily and Madison covered their retreat, fending off the last of the soldiers. As they raced down the hallway, Marcus triggered the detonator. The explosion rocked the armory, sending a shockwave through the building and plunging the command center into darkness. The transmitter was gone, Briggs's last hope of controlling the undead destroyed. Outside, the rain had finally begun to let up. The group collapsed behind a barricade, gasping for breath. Briggs, bloodied and defeated, glared at them with a mix of rage and disbelief. "You think you've won?" he spat. "This is just the beginning." Ben stared him down, his voice cold. "No, Colonel. This is the end, for you, and for your war." As the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, the group realized they had survived the night. But the city was still teeming with the undead, and the fight for humanity was far from over. They had struck a blow for freedom, but the true test of survival was just beginning. The first light of dawn revealed a city forever changed. The explosion at the armory had sent a shockwave through the undead ranks, scattering them in confusion. Without Briggs's transmitter, the zombies reverted to their primal instincts, dangerous, but no longer coordinated. The group, battered and exhausted, dragged Colonel Briggs through the deserted streets, his wrists bound with a length of cable. Rainwater pooled in the gutters, washing away the blood and grime of the night's battle. Ben kept a watchful eye on their prisoner, while Jackson and Marcus scouted ahead, wary of both the undead and any rogue soldiers who might still be loyal to Briggs. As they made their way back toward the university, the city felt strangely quiet. The constant drone of the transmitter was gone, replaced by the distant moans of scattered zombies and the occasional crackle of static from Olivia's radio. Emily walked beside Madison, offering her a reassuring smile. "We did it," she whispered, though her voice trembled with exhaustion. Madison nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and disbelief. "I never thought we'd make it this far." When they reached the university, Dr. Harlan and the other survivors greeted them with cautious hope. The news of Briggs's capture and the destruction of the new transmitter spread quickly, lifting spirits among the weary survivors. Dr. Harlan wasted no time securing Briggs in a locked storage room, guarded by two of the rescued survivors. "We'll decide what to do with him later," he said grimly. "Right now, we need to focus on the city." The group gathered in the science building's makeshift command center, maps and radios spread across the tables. Olivia reported on the state of the city. "The zombies are still out there, but they're disorganized. We've picked up radio signals from other survivor groups, some are trying to reach us, others are asking for help." Ben nodded, his face set with determination. "We need to organize a rescue. If we can bring more people here, we can start rebuilding. Maybe even clear out some of the worst areas." Marcus, ever the optimist, grinned. We've got enough supplies to last a while, and with the armory down, the soldiers won't be a problem. We might actually have a shot at this. Jackson, however, remained cautious. We can't let our guard down. The undead are still dangerous, and there could be more like Briggs out there, people willing to use the infected for their own gain. As the day wore on, the group split up to help fortify the university and coordinate with other survivors. Emily and Madison tended to the wounded, their bond growing stronger with every life they saved. Marcus and Olivia worked on repairing the radio equipment, boosting the signal to reach more distant survivor camps. Ben and Jackson led small teams on supply runs, clearing out nearby buildings and rescuing anyone they found. That evening, as the sun set behind the ruined skyline, the group gathered on the roof of the science building. The city below was still dangerous, but for the first time since the outbreak began, there was a sense of hope. Survivors lit signal fires on rooftops, their flames flickering in the twilight, a silent promise that humanity was not yet defeated. Dr. Harlan joined the group, his face tired but hopeful. "You've given us a fighting chance," he said quietly. "But we can't stop now. We need to find out who else was involved with Briggs, and make sure no one ever tries to control the undead again." Ben nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "We'll be ready. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As darkness fell, the Apocalypse warriors stood side by side, their resolve stronger than ever. The city was wounded, but not broken. And as long as they stood together, there was still hope for the future. Night settled over the battered city, but inside the university's science building, a new energy pulsed through the survivors. The Apocalypse warriors, Ben, Jackson, Emily, Marcus, Olivia, and Madison, had become symbols of hope, their courage inspiring others to fight back. The radio crackled with messages from distant neighborhoods, voices filled with gratitude and determination. Survivors who had once hidden in fear now emerged from the shadows, drawn by the promise of safety and the chance to reclaim their lives. In the command center, Olivia pored over maps and radio logs, coordinating rescue teams and supply runs. Marcus worked tirelessly to repair generators and reinforce barricades, his mechanical skills keeping the lights on and the doors secure. Emily and Madison moved through the makeshift infirmary, tending to the wounded and comforting those who had lost everything. Jackson and Ben led patrols through the surrounding streets, clearing out stray zombies and searching for any sign of lingering threats. Each day brought new challenges, but also new victories, families reunited, supplies recovered, and more survivors brought to safety. Colonel Briggs remained locked away, his influence broken but his mind still dangerous. Dr. Harlan interrogated him, determined to uncover the full extent of the rogue military's plans. "You'll never win," Briggs sneered through the bars. "There are others out there, others who see the potential in controlling the undead." Dr. Harlan's eyes hardened. "We're not interested in control. We're interested in survival, and in rebuilding what you tried to destroy." With every passing day, the survivors grew stronger, their unity a powerful weapon against both the undead and those who would exploit them. One evening, as the group gathered on the rooftop to watch the city lights flicker back to life, Olivia shared news from the radio. "We've made contact with survivor camps in the suburbs and even a few in neighboring towns. They're organizing, just like us. They want to join forces." Ben smiled, the weight of the past weeks finally lifting from his shoulders. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll build something better, together." Jackson nodded, his gaze sweeping the horizon. "We've seen the worst humanity has to offer. Now it's time to show the best." As dawn broke, the survivors assembled in the courtyard, their numbers swelling with each new arrival. Dr. Harlan addressed the crowd, his voice steady and full of hope. "We have faced the darkness and survived. We have lost much, but we have not lost ourselves. Today, we begin again, not as victims, but as warriors. We will fight for every street, every home, every life. The undead are not our masters. We are the future of this city. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing across the campus and into the city beyond. The Apocalypse warriors stood at the front, their bond forged in fire and loss, but also in hope. Emily squeezed Madison's hand, Marcus clapped Jackson on the back, and Olivia smiled at Ben, her eyes shining with pride. Together, they had turned the tide, not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light over the battered city, the survivors marched forward, ready to reclaim their world. The undead still roamed the streets, but now they faced a united force, one that would never again be caught off guard. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, victory felt possible. And as long as the Apocalypse warriors stood together, humanity's future would burn bright, even in the darkest of times.